Hi, how are you tonight? And thank you for joining me. My name is Roberta Colasino, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. Today was kind of a fun day. We had tornado warnings. I always forget which is the worst one, the watch or the warning, so I asked Google, and Google said the warning was worse. And as much as we've had a few of those warnings here over the years, or the microburst storms, this one they just seem to be making a bit of a fuss over. And even though I know it usually doesn't amount to anything, I decided to take the cats and go down, hang out in the basement. They were totally confused by that, just totally confused. And we stayed there for about 20-25 minutes because they said that's when the tornado warning would be over. And then we got some thunderstorms, and then we got some wind, but it went away, and then it poured, and then the sun came out. It was a very strange day, for sure. So far nothing, but they're saying there's still a possibility, but not so much right in this area. But I guess not too far from us, some areas got hit really hard. So I'm feeling very sorry for them, but glad that it didn't happen here. All right, so today I'm doing what I call a product-based class. So what that means is I'm focusing on one product, and that product could be a stamp set. It could be a set of dies. It could be masks, or it could be masking paper, or it could be stencils, things like that. So today the product is a stamp set. In fact, it's actually a bundle, and it is the bundle called Seaside Wishes, which I really like a lot. And we made a card in my Coffee and a Card class yesterday that those of us who made it were very happy with it. And so I thought I would reproduce that card for you tonight, but some other things as well. And then at the same time, I'm going to discuss with you again the concept of the beginner crafter or stamper versus the casual versus the avid. And I'll go over those a little bit as we're working. So let me put the camera down so that we can get going. Okay, and then as usual, I've always got to make an adjustment or three to get this just right. Okay, looking pretty good. It'll do. So just a reminder that this is the host code for the month of July, and if you shop with me during this month, please use this host code so that if your order is under $150, then I might get some rewards. I don't get the rewards unless enough people ordered so that the order is actually $150 or more with all of your orders combined. That's kind of the way that works. But if your single order, just yours, is $150 or more before shipping and taxes, then don't use the host code because you will get rewards. The problem is you have to have $150 to get those rewards, and not everybody places those kinds of orders, and that's perfectly understandable. I don't always even place those kinds of orders. So just use that if you're going to do some shopping. All right, we've got a lot going on in July that's pretty darn exciting. So here is my calendar for July, and I would just urge you to take a look at that. There are some special offers in there. On online exclusives and things that are coming up, we have some of the kind of peaks of what might be coming up during the holiday season, but there's still what we used to call the holiday catalog, and now we call it the September to December mini. But that includes the holidays, so that will have things for Halloween, things for fall, seasonal things as well, obviously Christmas, Thanksgiving, fall, those kinds of things. So we've got this one called Potions and Spells, and the Potions and Spells bundle, and that looks like a lot of fun. It's got a cauldron, and it's got some bubbles and so on, so that looks like it would be a lot of fun. And then other new online exclusives are Christmas exclusives. So we have the Season of Green and Gold 12 by 12 paper, and we also have Graceful Greenery paper. There are dies that go with this as well as stamp sets, and the dies will actually cut out some of these pieces of greenery. The dies will actually cut out, hang on just a second. Something's not right. Okay, I can see it here. I'm just not seeing it. Okay, there we go. Alrighty, it's always like some little thing that happens that just, makes me pause. Last week I got cut off in the middle, well, not at the middle, but at the end. It was either internet or electricity. I'm still not exactly sure what happened. Anyway, so the dies will also cut out things that are in the DSP, which is really nice for people who, don't want to stamp every single thing and color it. So this is the whole suite. It's kind of what we call a super suite. So if you buy the whole suite, you actually get two bundles of stamp set and dies, and then you get some ribbon, you get some embellishments, and you should get the DSP. Yep. Okay, so that's shown on this side. You get the DSP. You do not have to get all of that. You could just choose to get one bundle. You could just choose to get the bundles. If you're going to get both of the bundles, then it kind of makes sense to go ahead and get the whole suite. But if you just like one bundle over the other, this bundle is nothing but sentiments, but it has some amazing label dies. And I'd be willing to bet you that there are some people out there who are buying the label dies and maybe not even buying any of the rest, just because it's always nice to have these label dies. And these particular label dies have a spot in them where it punches a hole so that you can use these for Christmas tags or for wraparounds on packages and things like that. All right, then we've got this one here, which is called Iconic Imagery. And this one's kind of interesting. It's also showing up kind of small. This one's kind of interesting because it's got some fall things, some winter things. It's got a couple of hearts, which really could be for anything, not just Valentine's Day. It's got some small sentiments in print that you can combine with the larger sentiments that are in cursive. It's kind of neat, and it also has some very interesting labels. So that's another one that's coming up. And then this is the paper that goes with that, the Iconic Celebrations paper. And that's also very interesting. Some of the colors are traditional Christmas colors, but not all. This one has hearts on one side, which makes you think Valentine's Day, but on the other side it has like champagne glasses, which makes you think New Year's. So you could use these really throughout the holiday season and beyond. All right, so I just wanted to fill you in on those. And then, oh, I know I missed something. Hang on. Oh yeah, this is important. So Bonus Days is happening now in July, and it goes until the 31st of July. The way Bonus Days works is for every $50 you spend, you will get a $5 coupon. And I say coupon, but they're not sending you a piece of paper. They will email you coupon codes. So you could literally spend $50 one week and then $50 the next week, or you could spend $100 in a day or $150 in a day. You'll get the same amount no matter what, and they will add up, and you will get one coupon for every $50. The $50 has to be before tax and shipping, okay? Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining me. And then you can redeem them in August. So you buy in July and you redeem in August, between August 1st and 31st. And that's always kind of nice because it's just like having a coupon at the store. It almost reminds me of the, if you're a Kohl's shopper, the Kohl's, what do they call them? Kohl's Cash, where you get extra money to spend things with. So let's get started. So this first card is absolutely a beginner card. Now, that being said, there are times when I want nothing more than to make a super simple card. All right, and it doesn't matter whether I've been crafting half of my life or not. I just want to make something quick and easy. Maybe I'm participating in a swap, and when you participate in a swap, you might have to make 20, 30, 50 cards. So I don't want that card to be too complicated. So don't think that this is only for beginners. It's for anybody who wants something simple. So what we're using is crumb cake, ink. Here is the Seaside Wishes stamp set. We are also going to make a slimline card, which I don't do very often. So this slimline card is a piece of crumb cake cardstock that started out its life as 7 by 8.5. And then I folded it in half, or scored it in half, at the 3.5 line. So now the card itself is 3.5 by 8.5. Now this card will fit in a typical business size envelope if you don't know how to make your own envelopes or you don't want to mess with making your own envelopes. I went searching through my things, mostly through retired paper, to see what I had that would go with something that was kind of an ocean theme. And I found this paper that retired probably, I don't know, 2 years ago, maybe more. I remembered the name all day, and now I'm forgetting it. Something Expressions. Oh, good grief. Well, it'll come to me eventually. And on the inside, it has some really pretty metallic stuff. I should have written it down in my notes. And the outside just kind of does look like water, or, I don't know, even algae in water. So I did make my own envelope for this card. And I used the envelope punch board, which is something we used to sell, but we don't anymore. But they're still for sale. They're memory makers. Used to be called We Are Memory Keepers, and now it's called something else. Very similar name, though. And you can buy them on most of the websites, and you can probably get it on Amazon because you can get just about everything there. So I custom made one, okay? But it will work with just a regular business size envelope, which you could decorate to make it a little bit nicer. So the Seaside Wishes, right now we're only using the stamp set, all right? We're not going to use any of the dies, but this is the dies. And I wanted to show you, because I can't remember if I did before, there aren't a lot of dies with this, and you'll see all of them in use a little bit later on tonight. But I wanted to show you, this is what they call a hybrid embossing folder and die set. So you can actually take these dies and put them into the folder, and then you kind of wiggle them around. You're going to put them in on the side where you see the little Stampin' Up! Logo. You're going to wiggle them around until they fit into place. And then you're going to put your paper over the top of it. And when you put your paper, I lied. Hang on. No, that's right. You're going to put your paper over the top of it. And when you put your paper over the top of it and close it and run it through the emboss and cut machine, it will give you 3 sand dollars that are not only cut out to this shape, but have texture to them, are 3-dimensional. So typically a bundle is either a punch and a stamp set, maybe an embossing folder and a stamp set, or dies and a stamp set. But when you get a hybrid embossing folder, the dies are part of the package, so you're actually getting all 3 things. So that makes it a pretty good deal, in my opinion. Okay? So let's get going. So like I said, this is going to be a super simple card. I'm going to put those aside right now because I don't need them right now. I am using a sentiment from the Warm Welcome set. I'm just using the Hello, just because sometimes it's a real simple thing to use, and I like to use it. I've just got some scrap paper here for stamping off, and I've got the Hello stamp here, and then over here, and of course I just buried them all, over here I have the large starfish, and I have, well, I think that's all I'm using right now, and then I'll show you what else I did. Okay, so we'll start with just that. So like I said, this card is going to be simple. So the other term that we sometimes use for beginner cards or simple cards is we call them a SIP card, SIP, which just stands for stamp, inks, and paper. So that means you're not using die cuts, you're not even using punches, you're not using any fancy techniques, you're not using blending brushes, you're not using markers of any kind, you're just using stamps, ink, and paper. Now, you could use lots of different color ink, but let's say you were just getting started out and maybe you decided to buy a blue ink pad and crumb cake ink pad and maybe a black ink pad. Maybe you decided to buy 5 ink pads and just kind of see how you liked stamping before you go out and spend a bundle. And I do recommend that people start out slow, because a friend of mine actually just told me yesterday that she's going to be coming by the Wayne County Arts Council on Saturday and dropping off some stained glass making supplies, because she went out and bought all the stuff to do stained glass and she didn't like it at all. So start slow. Okay, definitely start slow. So we'll put our envelope aside, and like I said, this slimline card is 3.5 by 8.5. All right, but the paper starts out as 7 by 8.5 and gets scored at 3.5. So again, beginner card. So I'm going to open it up because it's not good to stamp near a fold on a card. So I am going to open it up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to line it up over here so that I can do some stamping off. All right, let me make sure that you can see this. I've tried to rearrange things so that I'm holding this in a better spot for you guys to see it all. There we go. All right, I'm going to fold it so I know that it's right, and then I'm going to have to hang on to it. All right, so here is my large starfish, and here is my crumb cake ink pad. So I'm literally doing what's called tone on tone or monochromatic. I'm basically using one color, period. And I'll explain why I've got these things out here to you in a minute. So I'm going to just take these starfish. Oh, you know what? I'm going to need another scrap of paper. Hang on. Okay, another scrap of paper because I'm going to want to get one under everything else too. There we go. Okay. Now I re-inked this particular pad today and I thought it was kind of dark, so that's why I thought I might need to stamp off, but I think it'll be okay. So here I'm going to go ahead and just stamp right off. So you're not seeing the whole starfish. Over here I'll put a whole starfish. And I'm just going to kind of keep doing that, working my way around. And I'm going to move the starfish even though it's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Some of the, I don't know, they call these tentacles on a starfish? I don't know what they call them. But some of them are different shapes. So I don't want it to just look like I did every single one the same. So that's why I might take it, and while I'm inking it up, I might just kind of twist it around. Now this one I'm going to put smack in the middle here. And then I'm going to come over here. And I'm going to come over here. All right, and actually I think I sort of made a mistake already, but I can fix that and I'll tell you what I did in just a second. And now I'm going to take the same ink that I just used and stamp the hello. So I should have maybe left these two off so that I would have more room for the hello, but I think what I'm going to do instead is maybe just put the hello up here in one of those spaces, and so it's okay. I always tell people in my classes and when I do these videos that most mistakes can be fixed. So that's a pretty small hello, but I'm okay with it because I don't want this card to like jump out at you. So that's it. We're done, or we could be done. Now I said it was simple stamping, and because of that, I'm assuming that the person who might be doing this card, if they really are a beginner, does not have the Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine and doesn't have all the dies and all that stuff. But what I did do was on some basic white paper, I stamped one starfish and I stamped one silver dollar. However, you're going to know right away because you know I don't mind doing this. I did not use the dies even though I have them. I fussy cut these two pieces. So that means I just took my paper snips, which are great for doing fussy cutting, and I cut them out myself. And it took me just a couple of minutes to do it, and so now I still managed to keep this simple and to tell you that you could do this even if you don't have all the stuff. All right, so I'm going to glue the starfish down. I'm going to take my bone folder too and just burnish this down a little bit more so maybe it'll stay closed a little bit better. I'm going to close this before I accidentally stick something in it. I also keep on my desk a few of these little gem things, and sometimes I just use them to hold the card closed for me while I'm working or even when I'm taking a picture of it. So did anybody else get that bad weather where they were? It seemed like it kind of went around us or just over us or something. All right, I always keep a pin nearby because sometimes the glue clogs. This is a really good pin. The really strong pins are the ones that you get, oh, but it may not fit. No, it's fitting. The ones that you get like to put a carnation on or a what do you call it, a corsage on, they seem to be super strong pins. So they really work well for crafting and unclogging glue bottles. Some of the others that I've purchased will bend in half if you have to push a little too hard. Okay, it's still not working for me. Oh, well. The other thing with these fine tip glue bottles is if you're not careful and you push too hard, you can push the, whatever you call that thing, the tip right into the glue bottle, which is not good. There we go. Just how to go in a little bit further. Yeah, so these pins are thicker too, so they may not go in all of these glue bottles depending on which kind you have. Let's try that again, because this was supposed to be quick and easy. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to glue this one down. And I'm going to put that, let's see, I kind of want to put this over here. All right, so I'm just going to press that down, give it a good press, and then I'm going to put the top back on this so maybe it won't dry out again on me, maybe. And I'm going to grab some dimensionals and I'm going to pop this up on dimensionals just to give it a little interest. Oh, there we go, that is the bad. Oh, that's the one where I did it without stamping off and I thought it was too dark. I was just going to say, geez, I did a really crummy cutting job there, but I didn't. So this card is very basic, and not everybody's going to like it because some people would love to have a bunch of colors, and some people might have stamped every starfish in a different color. And by the way, I did find out, because I Googled it, you know, I have this great relationship with Google. Starfish come in lots of colors. They're not all just like that whitish brown color. That's the color that a lot of them turn to when they oxidize, you know, after they die and they dry out being on the beach and in the sand and whatnot. They come in red and blue and all kinds of colors. There's even some that have polka dots on them. So I learned something new because I honestly didn't realize that. So there you go. I mean, that's the card. It doesn't get much easier than that, and I didn't use any special tools or any special techniques. I don't really consider fussy cutting a technique. All right, so let me just show you real quick. I have showed you before, but maybe you haven't seen it. This is the envelope punch board, and actually I bought mine before I had anything to do with Stampin' Up, so it's just the regular one from, it used to be called We Are Memory Keepers, but I feel like now it's just called Memory Keepers. And the way it works is it comes with its own little bone folder. And I know that I just got done telling you that this card is 3.5 by 8.5. And it's got this chart here, and I know you can't see that. I can barely see it, and I'm sitting here. So I looked over here till I found a card size 3.5 by 8.5. And it tells me if your card is 3.5 by 8.5, you need a piece of paper, whatever kind you choose to use, that is 9 3/4 by 9 3/4. And then you're going to start scoring at 3 1/8. So what happens is that you open up your paper, you take your paper like this, and you put it in kind of anywhere, it almost doesn't matter. And then you line it up with 3 1/8, and that's where that end, where that piece lines up. I think I've got mine upside down. Then you press this down, which I'm not going to do, and it makes a little notch. And then you turn it around, and then you keep scoring on the lines. All right, I know that's kind of a bad tutorial, but the tutorials are all over Facebook and all over YouTube and whatever, so you could certainly find one. I just thought it was pretty to make my own. So the envelope, I think I already told you, 9 3/4 by 9 3/4, and then follow the directions on the punch board. So that is going to fit perfectly. So what I had to do, though, because this was big paper, was that these points came down like to that and came up here, so obviously it wasn't going to work. So I had to cut some off of here, and this becomes the bottom of my envelope. And what I did was I made some lines with a marker. It's hard to see, isn't it? There we go. Made some lines with a marker just to remind me not to put glue here, because if I put glue here, you know what? I'm gluing my envelope shut. Not that people don't do that on occasion, and maybe I have even done that. I'm not saying I have, but maybe I have. So you want to put a thin line because you don't want it to ooze out. And then just give it a rub and hang on to it for a minute or two. Not even a minute, a couple of seconds. And then do the same thing on the other side. Now last night I gave my son his birthday card and his birthday gift. His birthday was a few days ago, but they came over to go swimming. And he said, I'm going to try not to rip the envelope. He says he saves every card I've ever made him. So what I purposely did was I put a dot of glue right on the tip. I didn't really seal the whole thing down. But another thing that you can do if you don't want your pretty envelope being ripped, and please don't get upset if people do rip it because they don't understand how much time it takes to do this stuff, is you can take a circle in matching paper and put some glue on it just on the bottom half or even bottom third of the circle, and then put that down below the line where the envelope is. Hold it down for a few seconds. You want to try to center it, and I sort of did and sort of didn't. And then you can open it just by pulling that out, and you've got this like hidden closure. And in this case it blends right in. I could have used the other side, it would be more visible. So my card's going to fit right in there, and then I can close it like that. If I'm mailing it to somebody, and you can mail these, no problem. What you're going to have to do is maybe put a white label there, or use a pen, you know, like a gel pen that has a bright color on it, or even a white pen. Then you'd want to glue this down because this won't hold up in the mail. But you absolutely can mail a card like that, no problem at all. So that's card number 1, and that is the beginner or SIP card. All that on there. Okay, card number 2, we're going to step it up a little bit of a notch. Okay, so for card number 2, I've got a piece of our Fluid 100 watercolor paper. And this is how it comes. It comes in 5x7 sheets. And I'm looking to see how many you get because I never counted and I already opened it. So you get 10 sheets of it in here. All right, and it's a super, super good quality of watercolor paper. However, it's not exactly white, but it's also not exactly very vanilla. But I like the way it looks better with very vanilla than with white. Now, you might have a different opinion, so you do whatever you like to do. But I decided to put it with very vanilla. Besides which, oh, it's pouring again. Just started. I don't know if you can even hear that. All right, so this is going to be our casual card. So this is for the person who crafts maybe once in a while, maybe gets together with friends and crafts once a month, maybe takes a class once in a while, but they're not sitting in their craft room making things like all day, every day, like I am. All right, so we've got the very vanilla base, and then we've got the piece of the Fluid 100 watercolor paper, which I made almost the same size as the card base, just like an eighth or even a 16th of an inch smaller, okay? So I'm going to set that aside. Now, here's what I want to do. And the last time I made a card like this, I didn't like the way it came out, but I love the idea of it. And I know I did it in a class. I can't remember if I did it on a Facebook. So I'm going to try to do something different. Now, if I were coloring this whole sheet of paper here, all right, if I were coloring the whole sheet, what I would be doing is I would be wetting the paper, because you're supposed to wet before you watercolor. So I'm not using typical watercolor paints. Hi, Amy. I'm not using typical watercolor paints. I'm actually going to use the inks. Sometimes I use the re-inkers, but this time I'm going to do something different. And I'm using this block because tonight this block is going to be my stamp. And I'm going to make a rectangle on one side of the card using that stamp. Okay, so I've chosen Lost Lagoon, Pool Party, and Lemon Lime Twist to do this with. I think they're very similar to the colors that I used the last time. Sometimes I have trouble with my hands squeezing the water painter, so just to be on the safe side, I grabbed a jar of water. So what I'm going to try to do, because when you wet paper and then you add ink to it, the ink does not spread out beyond the wet part. So it's almost like the dry paper acts like a stopper. That's what I'm hoping anyway. Now that I'm telling you that, who knows if it's really going to be true or not. So I'm going to wet the paper in a rectangle about the same size as that block. Maybe I should keep that right next to it so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to try to get it as wide as the block. And the problem is that I can't see what I'm doing. You probably can't see it either. I mean, I can't see the wetness of it. Oh, if I hold it up, I can. So that's a little bit better. Okay. And it's really important that I get it to be as long as I need it to be and as wide as I need it to be, but not any more than that. We'll see what happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my stamps and I'm going to try to ink up this block. All right, so that is the Lost Lagoon. And this is the Pool Party, and I'm going to try not to get, you know what I'm going to do though? Hang on. I'm going to take a wipe because I think I went a little bit further than I want to go. So I'm going to take a baby wipe. Baby wipes are your friend when you're crafting. I'm going to take a baby wipe and just wipe some of that away. Okay, but now I have to add some more water just to make sure, because I see that's drying a little bit. Now I'm going to add the Pool Party and try not to get the Pool Party ink in the Lost Lagoon ink. Now there's no way for me to do this without getting the Pool Party ink down here where I don't want it, and that's okay, because I'll just take my handy dandy baby wipe again and I'll wipe off where I don't want that ink, and now I will put in the Lemon Lime Twist and try really hard not to get the Lemon Lime Twist ink into the Pool Party. So it's not perfect, but I'm not looking for perfect. So now, instead of what I did the last time was I sprayed this with water, and then as I turned it to stamp, it like spread all over the place, and it dripped, and it got goopy and goppy, and I didn't like it. So I'm going to hold it down for a couple of seconds, more than a couple of seconds, because I want that ink to have time to spread out a little bit. And again, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to look like I used a stamp. But as I press, you can see that ink sort of spreading out. Okay, so I have a bit of a mess. It's not awful. And the other thing that you can do to sop up watercolor paint, it's almost like erasing it, is just to take something dry, which by the way a baby wipe is not, but take something dry and just kind of like erase it. And if a little bit escapes, I'm really okay with that. It's much less messy than it was when I did it the other way. So I would suggest wetting the paper first and not trying to wet the, whatever that is, not trying to wet the block. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, so I'm going to close that before I spill it. I forgot to cover up my glue, and I'm going to need that. No, I don't need the glue for this card, so. All right, so some of it escaped, as you can see. Some of it has like moved out a little bit, and again, that doesn't bother me because it's not perfect. But I do want to stamp on this, and I certainly cannot stamp on something that's wet. So I'm going to grab my heat tool, which I know is always in the same place. It is. And yet, at the moment, hang on. Oh, I see it. Oops. Well, at least now I know it's plugged in. Hang on. Oh, jeez. I put a box down on top of it. Okay. I'm also going to turn it over and heat it up on the back a little bit to help it to dry faster. And I really do need to be sure that it's totally dry, because if it's not, I'll make a real mess with my ink. Whenever you add water to paper, even watercolor paper, it will bend a little bit. And by going on both sides, that helps to flatten it out again. Okay, it's hot to the touch, so I'm thinking it really is dry now. Okay, so now I want to grab my Memento black ink, just because I think that will give it a really nice look. And now I need the large stamp again. Oh, and I've got to clean that off, don't I? Something just went flying, but I have no idea what it was. I hope it wasn't anything important. Okay. I did re-ink this recently, so I'm hoping that this will be dark enough. This would be a great time to use your Stamparatus, and you may know that's something that we used to sell. And because of a lawsuit from another company who thinks that we were infringing on their patent, we no longer sell it. But you can buy similar things, and if you still have one, they're great. It was absolutely the best one on the market, and I do believe that our model was better and different than others, but I'm not a lawyer, so what do I know? All right, I'm having a hard time getting this to ink up, and I'm not sure why, other than the fact that maybe I didn't dry it well enough. All right, now the whole thing doesn't, no, I'm not happy with that. Hang on. The whole thing doesn't ink up anyway. It does sort of have a lighter look in the center. So I'm going to clean it again, and then thank goodness I'm wearing some jean shorts, because I'm just drying it off on my shorts. Because with the photopolymer stamps, if they're wet, they don't work so well. Let's see if that looks any better. Okay, it looks better. So I'm going to put that, yeah, I'm still not happy with the way that looks, but we're going to go for it. Okay, that's not bad. I'm okay with that. And then I'm also going to get the small starfish, and I hope I got him out. I think I did. I think I did. Yep, here he is. All right, so we're going to get the small one out too. Now that one's inking up much better, so it must have had something to do with it getting wet and not getting totally dried. All right, we're going to put that one here. Now this was a card that I saw. I cased this card almost identically. The colors are slightly different. I cased it from the Stampin' Up! Artisan team. So Stampin' Up! Has artists that not only design their stamps, but who also, show samples of how to use their stamps. So the sentiment that I'm going to use that comes with this set, I really, really like. It says, sometimes the simplest things mean the most. So that might mean anything. Something that you could do for someone, like just a small favor for them, that they really appreciate, means more than if you did some big thing for them. And quite a few people chose this stamp to use yesterday on some of the cards that they were making. I'm just going to put that one kind of down towards the bottom a little bit. Okay, so that is, again, a pretty simple card. The only thing that makes that a casual as opposed to a beginner is that I used a watercolor technique, and a beginning stamper might not choose to do that because it can be a little tricky. All right, and again, some of the ink got in different places, and that to me doesn't matter. Now I know some people would really be bothered by that, but it doesn't bother me because I don't think art was ever meant to be perfect. So definitely drying this on both sides and going back and forth helped to kind of flatten it out a little bit. Otherwise it would be bumpy. But you still, because the watercolor paper has such a heavy texture to it, we just want to make sure that we get all the sections down and the corner down and everything so that it doesn't come up. So that's card number 2. And on the inside, what I could do just for something different is I could just, instead of leaving it blank, I could stamp the small starfish down here maybe. Sure, now it comes out great now that I'm stamping the inside of the card. And I could leave it like that. The other thing I could do is to just take my brush and maybe dip it in some more ink and just maybe make a wavy line with some ink inside. But this isn't watercolor paper, so you'd have to be really careful. So I'm not sure that's a great idea or not. So there you go. That's card number 2, and that's a casual card. And then card number 3 is the one that we made in class yesterday. That is a little bit more fussy. So this is the card that we made in class. Let me take it out of the, let me check my fingers for wet ink though. Let me take it out of the package so you can see it a little bit better. There we go, had it upside down. So there we go, that's the card that we made yesterday. I told people if you don't like tearing paper, you don't have to tear the paper, you could just cut it. But some people, I think most of them, were perfectly happy with tearing it. All right, so that's that card, that's what we're making, that's what it's gonna look like. And this is how my card kits come when you, some people buy card kits from me, or you just get them when you come to class and you make them. So you get an envelope, obviously, so you have something to mail it in, and then all of the things, if there's little parts, like there were in this case, I try to put everything inside so it can't get lost. So yesterday, and this kind of thing happens all the time, one of the ladies decided she wanted to use this for her front, so it's two-sided paper. I don't know if she wanted to do it because she saw that I did it, or if she wanted to do it because she really just preferred that side. And then she accidentally put her glue on this side. So I gave her another piece of paper, but I said, don't throw that out because I like both sides. So you can't really use this side because it's got glue on it, but it's all dry now. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to just use the other side, which I think looks pretty watery to me, so I think it's perfect. So we're just going to set that aside for a minute, and I'll try to make sure I get the glue on the right side. That's a spare piece that we may or may not use. And then this one has all the stuff. So this one has the 2 starfish, which are die cut. It has the sand dollar, which is die cut and embossed using that embossing folder that I told you about that cuts and embosses at the same time. This one has all of these little embossed pieces of seaweed. It has another scrap that we could use on the inside of our card. it has this thing, which we were all trying to figure out what it was. Was it a sand dollar? Was it a sea urchin? Nobody was really sure. If you know what that is, let me know. And then this will go on the inside. Okay, so we'll save that for later too. So to start with, if you look at this card here, what I did was I took some sand, a stamp that looks like sand or little particles, and some rocks, and I stamped the top and the bottom of the card with that. Okay, so let's see. Again, same thing as we did before. I want to open this up, but I don't want to get anything there stuck on that. So I'm going to, let's see, I've got to get something under it and over it, and I still have to not lose all these little things. All right, so there we've got that, but I'm going to want to get something under it as well. And I'm only doing the top and the bottom. I'm trying to push this stuff out of the way so that you're in camera. And you can see what I'm doing, because it helps if you can see what I'm doing. All right, that'll probably work. So now I'm just going to have to hang on to it. I'm opening up the crumb cake because I'm using that again. And I started out, let's do the top first, just so I can get rid of this piece of paper. I think I started out with 2 or 3 of the little, there we go, the little pebble stamp. So this one has a configuration of 3 pebbles. So I'm going to stamp one maybe a little bit off, and then, oh, I just put my finger in the ink pad. You've got to watch for that. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it a slightly different way and maybe put one here, and then put one here, and then I'll go down to the bottom and put one here. Maybe I'll only do 2 this time, although I kind of like the way 3 looks. It's kind of balanced. All right, now I'm going to set that aside, and now I'm going to get out the one that kind of looks like little grains of sand. And in this case, I stamped once and then stamped off. So that just means I didn't go back to the ink pad. And same thing here, I'm going to stamp once and then stamp again, but without re-inking. And stamp once and stamp again without re-inking, and I have to add a little bit more here because I didn't quite fill that space up. And then even without re-inking, I could come back and just do a little extra here and there just to make sure that it's all filled in. And it won't be that visible, but it works. So now I want to see, depending on, because I didn't rip this piece, the person in my class ripped it. So it's not, I feel like I didn't do enough. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to open this up again. Maybe I won't do any more pebbles, but maybe I'll just come in with a little bit more of the kernels, what do you call them? Grains of sand, that's what they're called. Kernels is corn. Okay, found out last night that my cat likes to eat corn on the cob. And how do I know this? Because he took mine off the plate after I was done eating, and he stole it and went downstairs with it. Okay, so something happened here, and let me show you what happened here. I pressed a little too hard. I re-inked this pad yesterday, and I got ink around the edge of my block. And because of that, some of that came off on the back side of the card. Again, nobody's going to notice that but me, and I can probably use my eraser, sand eraser, to get most of that off of there. But that's why you also, I should be using the really tiny block for this, because it doesn't happen when you use a block that's very close to the size of the stamp, but I don't always have enough of those to go around, so I just have to use what I have. All right, let's put this away before we have an accident. So now I can flip that over. I don't know where my sand eraser is at the moment, but I have an eraser that has like little particles of sand in it, and it's almost like sanding and erasing at the same time, and it gets rid of little glue spots. But I can worry about that later. So I want to put the glue on this side because that's where some glue already got, and that's fine. Okay, I don't really think there's a right side and a wrong side, like an upside down or whatever. And there's just a tiny border left on either side. And so that's the background of my card that kind of provides that ocean-like look. All right. Then, what I told people that they could do after that was they had a couple of choices. I gave them a choice of a blue star or a pinkish star, and I think everybody picked the blue star. But whenever I'm doing stuff like this, whenever I'm die cutting things, I never just die cut or stamp one. I do a whole bunch, and then I put them in a container like this. So I've probably got like 10 starfish that are already cut out. Then I've got some that are stamped but not cut out. Then I've got some of these sand dollars that are stamped and cut out, some that are cut out using the hybrid embossing folder, and now these are ready. So if I decide I want to make another one of these cards, I don't have to get out everything and start all over again. It's always a good idea. Never just die cut 2 starfish. Why would you do that, right? So the other choice that I gave them was that they could leave these just like they are and put them on. And I kind of like that look. But I just wanted to show you, some of them opted to use the blending brushes and to add a little color to them. So what they did was, I think this one is Lost Lagoon ink, and they just put a little bit on the tip of the brush and went around in a circle and just put that one color there. Then on this thing here, what some of them did was they took all 3 of the colors, and these are the same colors that I used for the first card. So they start with the light color first because they're using the same brush over again, and they put a little of the lemon lime twist on there. And then they went to the Pool Party ink, and they just kind of rubbed it on the ink pad and put a little of the Pool Party ink on. And then they went to the Lost Lagoon, and they put a little bit of that on. So that gave them a different look. But just so that you can see how it looks with and without doing that, I will not put the blending, I will not blend these two, or this one. I'll leave them here, okay? So then these little pieces of seaweed are supposed to come out from behind. Now these cut pieces of seaweed, when they go in the hybrid embossing folder, they don't just get cut, they get embossed. It is ever so slight and barely noticeable, and I'm not even sure if I can get you to see it on camera. Yeah, not really, but oh, there you go. So you see there's just a tiny bit of texture there. So you can put them going in either direction that you want and match up the colors. I literally just went into my green scrap envelope and just took out green scraps. So there was not a whole bunch of thought that went into this. I didn't really think out the colors. I just thought seaweed is always green, bluish green, and I just took what I had. So what I did that sometimes just makes things easier was I always have a thing of tape over here next to me. And I had the tape on my finger, and I started just sort of playing with these. How do I want them to go? And I really wanted them to go in some different directions, and I couldn't get it to do it. What did I do with that card? So I kept looking at this and thinking it looked like the horns on a bull, which obviously wasn't the look I was going for. But I couldn't, even if I turned them upside down and used the quote-unquote wrong side, well, here you go. So I could get them going in some little different directions. I don't know. It's not a big deal. I also cut some of the bigger ones in half because I wanted some to be tall and I wanted some to be short. So maybe I'm going to use these two here, and so that I don't have to hang on to them or worry about gluing them yet, I'm just going to tape them on the back. Then I'm going to grab another piece of tape, so I've got it on my finger ready to go. And then maybe I'm going to put this one here going that way. So I'm kind of using the wrong side. I don't think it matters at all, but maybe I'll have these two be a little bit shorter. All right, because, you know, seaweed is kind of funky looking. It's natural looking, so it shouldn't have too much of an evenness or a pattern to it. And then that leaves me with two more. And maybe I could, let's see, I'm going to take one and I'm just going to snip it in half. Let's take the darker one and snip it in half. And then I'm going to maybe put this one and this one coming from down here. Well, wait a minute, stop and think. This is going to get glued onto that, so let me do that first. So this is kind of lacy, which gets a little tricky. I'm going to put some glue in the center there and anywhere where I see a slightly wider spot, and I'm just going to put dots of glue. And honestly, it will hold it. This is very strong glue. So I'm just going to make some dots. And I'm going to glue that to that. Now this is a silicone sheet, and so things don't stick to it. Glue won't stick to it. So if I have any glue on the other part, that's okay. I'll just hold it down for a couple of seconds. And if there's any glue on there, I can just wipe it away with my hand. Okay, so now I can get back to my seaweed. And maybe I'm going to take, all right, because I want that going in a different direction. So I'm going to take one of those short ones and I'm going to tape that on the back. Sometimes it's just easier to use the Scotch tape than all the fancy stuff that we have. And then another one here and another one here. Okay, I'm just going to flip it over before I drop it. And then tape that on. Now I'm not counting on those little pieces of tape to hold everything together here. So what I'm going to do next is take some of my dimensionals and I'm going to use them, number one, to kind of pop this up, but I'm also going to put them so that they're also holding down some of this other stuff. So I'm not just counting on the tape to do it, because Scotch tape sometimes dries out after a while. So if somebody saves your cards, you don't want it to fall apart on them the next time they take it out to look at it. Now, if somebody made me this card and I was, still working, I would definitely put it on my desk so everybody could see it, because I would think this was a pretty nice card to get. But there are people who take their cards out, read them, say thank you for the card, and put them in the garbage, and we just have to get over that when it happens, not let it bother us. Because like I said, if you don't make cards, you really don't have a clue how much time goes into it, so I can't get mad at somebody. I'd rather not find out that they threw it out, but I can't get mad at them if they do. All right, so I'm just going to put one on there too. And now that is going to come over here and go kind of like this. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I could put it going in the other direction. I could put it going this way. It just doesn't matter. I just tend to like leaning things towards the left. I don't know why that is, but I do. All right, and then we're going to put these on. So these I'm just going to glue down, I think. But they're going to overlap because I like it when things overlap a little bit. It's a nice look. So for this card, why we're going to call this an avid card maker's card is that we're stamping. We're doing a little bit of masking so that we're stamping off the page, which not everybody kind of knows. They haven't learned that technique yet if they haven't been crafting for a while. We're using die cuts, and this one's a little bit fussy because you've got to punch out all those little things. And we're building up layers. We tore paper. So this is definitely something that someone with more experience would probably do, as opposed to someone who just started crafting last week. You know what I mean? They're just going to say, what is she doing there? I'm going to try to get a little more glue under here, just because I worry about this getting ripped going in or out of the envelope. That didn't work. I can't actually see the glue coming out, so I don't know if it is or not. There we go. All right. And then we'll put the baby starfish on. And I probably should have grabbed the other color starfish so that you could see what it looked like with those, but I forgot. So there we go. Now, I did give people a liner for this card. That's what the white liner is, because a lot of people think the inside of a card should be white. One of the ladies didn't want to use the white liner at all, and she said I could write on this with a dark pen or with like a Sharpie fine point marker or something. So she didn't feel like she needed that. But what we did do, you can see it on mine, was I just kind of imitated a little bit what I had done on the front. And we used that same sentiment. So we cut down the liner, or I cut down my liner. I did some stamping here, and I see really that I probably should have gone up a little bit higher with my little splotchy sand granules. So maybe I will do that now, but I want to be careful because I don't want to get it on the white part of the card. So maybe I'll do a little bit of that, and then just, without re-inking it, just do a little bit of that. Okay? So I'm going to do that same thing here with the rocks. And get another piece of scrap paper under it just so it doesn't get ink on my pad here, even though it does wipe off. Now that time I put two really close together, and I forgot to turn them so they look alike, and again, it doesn't matter. I can't picture anybody but us noticing that. Now, if you leave stamps here like I did and you don't clean them, then what happens is you could put your brand new nice card that you just made, especially if it's white paper, you could put that on top of this and get a big old brown stain or whatever color it is. And so it's always a really good idea to clean your stamps and get them out of the way, because otherwise bad things can happen. Okay, so I could really just kind of leave that like that. I could take this strip and put it here like that, but I saved some more of these so that I could do some more tearing, because I do like to do the tearing on mine. So, and I think what I did was I tore kind of wavy and not as carefully on one side. You know, let it be kind of bumpy. I don't want to say wavy, but whatever, kind of bumpy. And then when I tore the other side, I was a little bit more careful, and to do that, you just keep your thumbnail, or your thumb if you don't have a nail, kind of close to the edge so that when you're tearing it, it's not quite as wavy as that is. You can also, if you don't like the wavy teariness, you can take a ruler and tear against a ruler. So it still comes out straight pretty much, but not like you cut it with scissors. It comes out straight, but it looks like it was torn. But it's a little bit more controlled. It's all up to your personal preference, and you could decide not to even put anything on the inside of your card. Not everybody does. So now that's obviously too long, but I'm still going to glue it down that way. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I kind of like, if I measure it and then for some reason I measure wrong, which really could happen, then what happens is I've got a piece that's too short, and that's kind of annoying. I'm not going to take the glue all the way to the end because I know I don't need all of that. And I'm going to put this over here and then go ahead and push it down. And then I'll trim that. But you know what? If I want to use this, well, I don't think I will, because I did that on the other card, so I don't think I will. And we'll see how it looks. So we stamped that in a gray. But you know what I'm wondering? Gray is okay, but I think, let me trim this. I think this time I'm going to try something different. So you just flip your card over and you trim it like that, and it cuts beautifully. That's because these particular scissors are extremely good scissors. I think I'm going to go for a dark brown. So this is our ink called Early Espresso, like the coffee espresso. So it's a dark, dark brown. So I'm going to try using that and see if I like that. I haven't used this ink in a while though, and I just want to make sure that the pad is still wet enough. Yeah, it could definitely use a little more ink, but it'll be okay for this. Okay, and when you're stamping on with photopolymer stamps, you should put something with a little cush under it. So sometimes I use a mouse pad, sometimes I use these, which are just like kids' craft felt, not felt, what do you call it? Foam, craft foam. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment right on the crumb cake paper, and I think that's going to be just fine. And you can see that just as well as you could if it was on white, I think. If you don't think so, then you put a liner in your card, because I know some of the ladies in my classes really just insist that they have to have a liner because they don't like the way it looks without the liner. So I always make sure I have those, because we all have different tastes, and that's okay. That's what makes the world go round, that we all do things a little bit differently. Keeps things interesting. Okay, so we have, let me clear the decks a little bit here. So we have our beginner card. Let's see, I want to make sure you can see all these. We don't need to have those measurements there, with our homemade envelope. And let's put it right side up. It looks better that way. There we go. Our beginner card, or our SIP card. Then on the other end of the spectrum, we have our avid card for the experienced crafter, someone who crafts a lot and knows lots of techniques. And then this is for your casual crafter, who's kind of somewhere in the middle. So 3 very different cards, but all using the same product. So that's why we call it a product-based class. So there you have it. Next week, I already have some thoughts for next week. I'm dying to use the stippled rose set, so we might do that. I don't know if I'll do a product base next week or just do a variety of things. And I'm putting in an order later on tonight, but I won't have those things yet by next week, but I'll have some new product to show you soon. All right, so thank you very much for joining me, and have a great evening and great rest of your week, and I will see you 1 week from tonight. Take care.